Hello, and welcome to Francis Comfort News Channel. I am your host, Kaylee on the Spot, reporting to you live a timeline of Congress updates regarding the partial shutdown and shifting of HUD funding. If this is something that you're interested in, please make sure to hit the subscribe button to follow for more. On March 1st, there was an article released titled Congress Passes Another Continuing Resolution Avoiding Partial Shutdown and Shifting HUD Funding Deadline to be March 8th. Did anyone see any of that article, hear anything on news channel or anything? Congress passed a continuing resolution on February 29th to extend funding for federal programs, including HUD's vital affordable housing and homelessness programs to March 8th. The previous continuing resolution extending HUD funding was set to expire tonight. This was March 1st at midnight. And this expiration would have resulted in a partial shutdown of the federal government. To avoid passing a massive 12-bill appropriations deal, Congress will instead move the 12 bills into two separate tranches. The first 6 bills will expire on March 8th, while the remaining 6 bills will expire on March 22nd. And we have so many individuals walking around not knowing, not realizing how they can make a difference. The new deadline comes as Congress works to finalize the new fiscal year spending bill for 2024 for federal programs, including the Transportation, Housing, Urban Development, aka HUD, bill that funds HUD programs. Appropriators are expected to release the final text of the first 6 spending bills by March 3rd, with the final vote on the package by March 8th. Disagreements over funding levels and most recently over poison pill policy riders that far-right Republicans were pushing to include in the new bill text have delayed the bill by 6 months. Isn't it so interesting how they can be in the Congress, in these positions, having these feuds, while we have real individuals dealing with real affordable housing issues, homelessness crisis, food crisis, inflation on gas, but yet they're fighting over how they're going to spend all this money. Take action. Tell Congress to pass a final fiscal year 2024 spending bill for HUD. Your advocacy makes a difference. It is thanks to the hard work of advocates that, at a time when programs face cuts up to 25%, HUD received increased funding in both the House and Senate fiscal year 2024 proposals. But the fight isn't over. Congress needs to keep hearing from you about the importance of affordable housing and homelessness programs. NLIHC is calling on Congress to finalize and pass an fiscal year 24 spending bill with increased funding for HUD's programs as soon as possible, including but not limited to full funding to renew all existing contracts for housing choice voucher programs. We have made numerous videos on just alone the housing choice programs. It is very essential and needed for individuals to be able to get affordable housing. Increased funding for public housing operations and repairs. At minimum, the Senate's proposed $3.9 billion for homelessness assistance grants, the protection for $20 million in funding for the eviction prevention grant program provided in the Senate bill, and lastly, the House's proposed $1.1 billion for native housing. Just to recap on alone, just the key takeaway from that article alone: Housing Choice Voucher Program. The Housing Choice Voucher Program is a very beneficial resource for individuals looking for affordable housing. And those vouchers can either be used in Section 8 or Section 7 or Section 6. Check out the videos titled right here and to get more information on how you can use and be a part of that opportunity. Housing Choice Voucher Program. On March 17th, we have another article released titled U.S. Congressional Funding Fights Take Toll on Housing Aid Programs. Democrats in the U.S. Congress fended off some of the deepest cuts to housing and other social safety net programs sought by Republicans. But low-income Americans will nonetheless feel the brunt of reductions that were included in the new law. Bottom feeders are needed for a reason, huh? Washington's efforts to address the availability of affordable dwellings for low-income families and rid aging structures of dangerous lead paint contamination suffered funding setbacks in legislation enacted earlier this month as part of the wide-ranging government spending measure. As soon as Sunday, congressional leaders could unveil a deal on a second batch of legislation that may include funding for important health, labor, and education programs. Lawmakers face a Friday deadline to pass these measures or risk a partial government shutdown. The bills would determine funding levels for all array of social programs, including teachers serving low-income students, reducing mortality for poor pregnant women, job training for disadvantaged youth, and HIV prevention. The funding reductions and the appropriation bills already enacted into law come as housing advocates have warned that the need of low-income families were not being met. Are they surprised about that? Because I'm not. We've been knew that information, and it's needed, especially following the COVID-19 pandemic and rising housing prices. Almost 6 months into the fiscal year that began on October 1st, Republicans who control the House of Representatives and Democrats who hold a Senate majority in the White House are still arguing about federal spending priorities amid a national debt of $34.5 trillion that is rising at a dizzying rate. Isn't it so interesting how these individuals can be in position to help, but they're fighting about a budget that didn't come from their pockets, that's supposed to be for the public, for such things like affordable housing, but yet they find ways and ways and more ways, or try to find more and more ways to cut the underprivileged. How can the underprivileged ever get ahead if they're not even given what they're owed? Y'all not ready for that. On March 23rd, just a couple of days ago, Biden signs a $1.2 trillion government spending bill that averted shutdown at last minute. Just reading that title alone, doesn't it make you want to chuckle? Because if this argument started at the beginning of the month, and here we are at the end of the month, and you was able to find a solution overnight, why couldn't this been happen the first week when it first all started happening, to be able to get ahead on some type of solution, some type of get a hold of this thing, to be able to start going in the right direction? No, that's too much like right. President Biden on Saturday signed the massive spending package that the Senate approved overnight, avoiding a partial shutdown of the government and ending a month's long fight over spending that persisted 6 months into the fiscal year. The package fully funds the government through September. The Senate approved the $1.2 trillion package, which was unveiled earlier Thursday in a vote of 74 to 24. Hours earlier, it advanced out of the House in a 286 to 134 vote. The Senate slipped past the deadline after an hours-long standoff on amendment votes. Shortly before midnight, Senate Majority Leader Chuck, a New York Democrat, announced the upper chamber has finally reached their agreement that would allow them to expedite the bill's passage. Republicans demanded votes on amendments in exchange for speeding up the process. Without an agreement, the soonest the Senate could vote was Sunday. The missed deadline was not expected to have any effect on the government operations. Of course, right? The White House said agencies would not shut down and could continue their normal operations since it was clear that a resolution was made and that President Biden would sign the bill. The package wraps 6 spending bills into one to fund about 3/4 of the government until the end of the fiscal year. The bill includes money for the Departments of State, Homeland Security, Defense, Labor and Health and Human Services, as well as funds for foreign operations, financial services, and the legislative branch. Another package funding the rest of the government cleared Congress 2 weeks ago, and that wasn't put in the article what they cleared 2 weeks ago, which was also very interesting to me. Its passage allows Congress to shift its focus to other priorities, including next year's spending bills that need to be signed into law by October and foreign aid to U.S. allies that have been in limbo for months. With something have to be signed by October, you best believe your last dollar that something is going to trickle over into the election for November. So stay informed. Please subscribe so that you can stay informed for more updates regarding the fiscal new spending bill. You want to be an advocate for this mission for affordable housing. This is what Congress is saying you can do to be heard. Emailing or calling member offices to tell them about the importance of affordable housing, homelessness, and community development resources to you, your family, your community, or your work. You can use NLIHC's Take Action page to look up your members' offices and call/send an email directly. I will link the Take Action page for you to be able to look up your local member's office to be able to send something directly to be an advocate for the affordable housing mission. Very important. You may not be affected, but you may know a friend of a friend of a friend that is affected. And it's always good to know good information because you never know who you're going to run across or who's going to run across you that is looking for information. So just because you're not affected, just because you are where you want to be right now, does not mean this is not important. It's just as important as what is important to you, even though you're not affected. You can also use social media to amplify messages about the country's affordable housing and homelessness crisis and the continued need for long-term solutions. This is not something that is just in the moment, and it's going to always be needed. Lastly, share stories of those directly impacted by homelessness and housing instability. Storytelling adds emotional weight to your message and can help lawmakers see how their policy decisions impact actual people. I will make sure to link all of the links to all the articles, the Take Action page for you to read in depth at your spare time. But please, 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 please subscribe to our channel. That way you can stay updated with all of the affordable housing updates because we will be sure to bring them to your attention as I get the updates. If you have not already, make sure that you go back and look at the affordable housing resource videos that we have put out, because there is a guide for you to use for upward mobility. In life, you have to start from somewhere. Where you are right now is where you're not going to be later on. If one cannot get ahead with affordable housing, how can we ever get ahead? If one cannot uh, have a roof over their head, how can they get ready to get a job? We have so many people that say, hey, you've been becoming dependent on the government. Oh, hey, you should go to the military. Oh, hey, you should. If you don't have the bare necessities, if you haven't heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it is a real thing. We have to have our basic needs met to be able to reach our full potential. And having these resources allow us to go to school, allow us to get a trade, allow us to do all of these different things that will upgrade our quality of life to essentially be able to go out into this real world and be able to be with the big dogs. But for individuals who are where they are, you want to be able to reach back and pull somebody up with any resources or information that you have to be able to make this place a better community. I am your host, Kaylee on the Spot. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.